Hello and welcome to my video on Mandalorian Season 2 set ideas. So as the title explains, I'll just be going through some set ideas for the Mandalorian Season 2. If you do enjoy this video, please consider subscribing. Starting off with the Juggernaut. So this is one, I don't know the official name for, but we see in the 7th episode of Season 2. And I think it would be a vehicle Lego's very unlikely to make, but one that I would like to have seen. So this is a model of it. It looks very nice. I think it would be somewhere in between these two models in scale. Minifigures, you would have the Mandalorian in this pilot uniform. I think they could maybe put the Mandalorian's face underneath. That would be a nice touch if they did that, and maybe an extra hairpiece. And then Mayfield in his pilot uniform as well. I think that would be a nice inclusion. They probably wouldn't include any other main characters in the set. I think they would include a shore trooper and a stormtrooper or two. So then you could recreate this scene, which I think is quite a nice scene. And yeah, I think they could do this probably in $120 or £110 range. I think it would be a nice set if they did make it. Next, we have the Imperial Light Cruiser. So this is one that is supposedly coming this summer for $160. So I'll start off with looking at the model, well, the ship itself. So this is an angle of the underneath, and this is like it in space. It is supposed to be the same thing as what you see in Rebels, and I think the Lego version might look a bit more like this, not intentionally, but because it's quite a lot less detailed and it would be easier to make. But this one, yeah, you can see some obvious differences between these. And then I think you would include Moff Gideon, so these are the rumoured minifigures actually. The Mandalorian, Grogu or Baby Yoda, and Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan's one of the minifigures I'm more excited for because we haven't seen her before. Fennec, Cara Dune, and Luke Skywalker. Well, Luke Skywalker is the one, Dark Trooper Luke Skywalker, because the last minifigure's hard to tell because apparently it was just black coloured, but they couldn't tell what it was. And then next we have, so this would be Navarro. I think they could do a bunch of scenes from this. I would say they do the big arch and then a bunch of the scenes. So this is mainly season 2, but a bit from season 1. So they would do the bar as a school because I quite like this scene. And then you'd have the scene outside of it. They might do the smashed window. That might be a nice feature if they did this set where you could have the window smashed. And then you'd have this scene with the client and a couple stormtroopers maybe, and this would be a nice room. They could probably include a bit more of the building as well. And then you'd include I'd call it an office area and a couple speeder bikes because you see them at the entrance to the city. Minifigure wise, I'm going to do a rough guess of what I think they put in. So Cara Dune, Grief Karga, Baby Yoda or Grogu, and then you might want to include the small biscuits he steals, and that would be a nice addition. And the Mandalorian, Scout Trooper to go with the speeder bike, maybe 2 of those because you could do 2 speeder bikes because I believe that's how many are in the scene. Death Troopers to recreate the scene outside the bar, or convert it into a school. A couple stormtroopers for the same reason. Moff Gideon, I think you get Moff Gideon would be a nice addition. I don't think they'd include a TIE Lander though because that's like a vehicle, unless they did like a scaled down version of it, like the Slave 1 or the speeder they had in Mos Eisley Cantina. The client, his doctor, which I've forgotten the name of, sorry about that, I'll maybe put it in the description. And then this droid, and then you probably include a couple of the students. But the next one is this transport ship. It's an Imperial transport ship. So this is actually different from the Rebels version. We did see this set, but you can see there's 2 cannons on top. There's none, there's one at the back, but it's quite obviously different. It's a bit more bulked up. And then the minifigures would probably be the Mandalorian, Bo-Katan. So I think they'd have to include quite a few minifigures. You do see quite a few in the scene. Both of these minifigures would be nice, but I doubt they'd include either of them if they're trying to keep few minifigures, which is what Lego does. And then a stormtrooper and this officer, because you see him a bit more. They probably would include one pilot, hopefully. I'm not sure about that though. Next is this Imperial trip transport. So this is one that's kind of confusing because there's this version you can see with the free spots for the troopers to come out, and there's free on the other side as well. And there's this version which you see again. This is the one that's supposed to be coming this summer for $40. And they did do like a battle pack version of this, so in my opinion it was fairly terrible because it should have been more scaled up. But I think they probably won't do this for a while if they do end up being this. So this is the battle pack. As you can see, it's fairly well scaled down. And then this is a model of that one. I think that one would be a really nice set, but I doubt they do it. And there's another model. This one is I'd say this is kind of the scale I could do it to, but this one uses a bunch of techniques I don't think Lego would use. This is the one that's more likely to happen. The big turret on top and the two side bits. I kind of like this design. I hope it turns out something like this. So next is the minifigures. So you have a Stormtrooper. This is the rumoured one. Stormtrooper, Grief Karga, a Mortar Trooper, which looks really nice like in this design. And I think Lego would probably do something like that without the arm printing though. And then I wish they would have included like a carriage in. Well, this is kind of what I think they should have included as well. A Mandalorian and this Mithril, which would be quite nice because I wish they would include the Mithril. It would have been a nice addition to one of the sets, just because his head would be a nice exclusive thing. Next is Cobb Vanth Speeder. This is one that I wish they'd included on the Trouble on Tatooine, though the Trouble on Tatooine is a very good set, but it would have been a nice addition to that set. And I think they could maybe include the bar, which you see in that, which would be quite nice, because then they could make it a bit more expensive than it would be, and that's probably what Lego would do. So they could, this is the outside of it. They wouldn't do the speeder because we already seen that. The speeder's quite nice. And then minifigure wise, you'd have the Mandalorian, Cobb Vanth, and maybe the Bartender, as well as the Tusken Raider. Tusken Raider would be quite nice, but I think that's more unlikely, but you do see them, so maybe. And then next is the Save One. So this is one that's supposed to come in the summer, but because they're Lego, they're going to do it from episode 4 supposedly with Han Solo and Boba Fett. But if they did do it for the Mandalorian, I would have liked them to have included the Mandalorian and Boba Fett in his updated armor, because we haven't got him in the updated armor, and at the moment it looks like we won't this summer, which will be slightly disappointing. But I hope they eventually do it. Next is a TIE Outlander. This is one I don't think would come for a while because they just did the TIE Fighter. And I also think I'll try to do this in a future video where I mod the normal TIE Fighter into this. But I think that's another reason why, because people could just mod their normal TIE Fighter into this. So I think this is one we'll eventually get, but not soon. But then minifigures, Moff Gideon, Mandalorian, and a Death Trooper. You'd probably want to actually just jetpack, so then you could do the scene with the Mandalorian in it. And a Stormtrooper too, just because then you can recreate a bit more of that scene and you would go well with the Navarro set idea. This is the Imperial Transport. This is one that I think is basically very, very unlikely for them to make. It is a nice model. It's a bit like the First Order one, so the First Order one's probably a newer rendition of it. But it's nice. This is a nice render of what it would look like in Lego form. And I think this one's fairly unlikely, but if they did do it, they'd probably include Boba Fett and the Mandalorian, a Mortar Trooper because they'd already done it, and a Stormtrooper, and that would pretty much be it. And that's most of my set ideas for the Mandalorian Season 2. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.